Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are once again back with another episode of A2Y.
A2Y
Yeah, I'm Yasas, and
Namasi.
so as most of you know, we've been talking about the innovator's DNA, or how innovation starts and how Hash 33 helps you in terms of getting through that innovative mindset. Because some people say you have to be born an innovator, but we disagree. We
Mm.
believe, I mean, whilst you're born and you might inherit certain skills, we believe anyone can be taught to be an innovator. And we've done that. We've helped organizations, we've taken them through innovation workshops, and we have seen that transformation. So it's actually a mindset change. And Azi, we talked about four different skills the last couple of weeks, starting from questioning. We talked about observation. We talked about
Networking
experiment,
also.
networking.
Networking.
Exactly. So we
Mm.
talked of four important skills that you can develop to be a better innovator. But today we are going to talk of probably the linking skill, the
Mm.
most important skill that you need to have to create that innovation mindset, and that is associational thinking. Now, what is associational thinking, Asil? In your
See,
mind, what is associational thinking?
so I'll give a very short answer for that. Association is like connecting. Thinking is you are actually using your brain to think. So you are connecting your thinking uh, with the skills that you have.
Definitely. So the whole point is, if you observe something, you observed a gap, you identified something, but if you can't associate how practically it can be implemented or solved, you're losing out associational thinking.
Mm.
If you cannot see something that you got from networking, and another skill you have, if you can link this together and associate it, you cannot become an innovator. So some of the best innovators, like like Steve Jobs or even Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, they had that associational thinking habit. They were
Mm.
able to look at things, get their experience, their knowledge, what they've observed, what they've experimented, and put them together with another domain most of the time. Now,
Mm.
for an example, you might be a software engineer, okay, or you might be a marketer, you might be maybe a salesperson, right? But that is one set of skill that you are developing. If you develop another skill, maybe you read about architecture, you're a marketing person or salesperson, or you're an engineer and you learn marketing, or you learn another different skill, maybe finance, your perspective broadens. Then the way you look at things are going to be different. So you can now associate things better. The best example, I think we talked about this, it's part of observation also. How Steve Jobs used to go into the car park in Apple and look at the new vehicles. He used to look at the dashboard. He started looking at, the material, how luxury cars or new cars were built. He used to look at like the food processor in the pantry area to see like what material has been used. So he would find some type of plastic, aluminum, and he would think like, okay, how can this be integrated into my product? So that is
Mm.
associative thinking. A simple example is, as if we go to Lego as kids, most of us
Mm.
have played Lego or building blocks. Now, when we are very
Yes.
small, building blocks are almost the same size, different colors, right? But Lego is different. It has more variations, different sizes, different colors, different heights, different use cases. So if you don't have a creative mindset, if you can't figure out, okay, how can I use this piece, or how can I build a light, how can I build a staircase, how can I build something, and if you can't figure out how to use those different Lego elements, you're not going to come with something creative.
Mm.
This is exactly what associational thinking is. So associational thinking is like a muscle. Like anyone who goes to the gym or anyone who exercises your body, the first time you do it, it's not easy. You can't do things.
Yeah.
It's not.
Mm.
It takes time. It gives you a lot of pain. You don't like it. Your associational thinking is also a muscle like that. You need to force yourself. You need to push yourself to start getting it working. So there are simple exercises. One thing I would say is like look at different books, look at different websites, look at anything that's different than what you normally do. And then when you see something interesting, try to see, can I use this in my domain? And I
Hmm.
use this very much in my mentalism, magic kind of thing, because when I see something interesting, I look at, okay, can I bring this to mentalism? Can I do a magic effect with this? Right? If I see a new technology, I try to think of, okay, can this be brought into magic? What if we use this? So, a what if is a good question. If you start asking what if questions, you are going to really build that. That's basically associational thinking. You see a new feature on AI. What if I introduce this into my business? What if I start building using this for creatives and creating new stories?
Hmm.
What if I take this idea and use it in whatever you like, maybe in music? That's associational thinking. So you are basically forcing your mindset to start looking at what you have in hand and what you know together, and it's like trying to marry
Connect.
two people looking different. Because generally you say like partner with people who you like, but associational thinking is sometimes not that. You are not finding the similarities. Just because you like someone, just because that person is similar to you, you don't associate. Here, you are trying to bring in something that's dissimilar, something different, and trying to see how can you associate these things together. Another good advice I saw as in the Innovators DNA book was, they say, now example, you take business magazine. Let's say we take Sri Lanka's LMD magazine or Business Today, and they have
Yeah.
these ranks, right? They have the top 10 businesses, top 50 business, LMD 100, Business Today 100. So what you do is you take those companies, and let's say for an example, there's a bank in the first five, and we are #33. We are into consultancy. Now you take a company that is doing very well, you take your brand and you ask the question, what if #33 is like ABC Bank? Now you're forcing that marriage I mentioned. You're doing something completely different which you never
Hmm.
thought. #33 is a consultancy company and a bank. I mean, how can you relate? If you start thinking of that, no, no, we need to marry. Let's say we have, a child together, a bank and a consultancy. What would that child look like? Then we would think like, oh, okay, so this consultancy is into the financial sector, in regulation, in banking, or maybe because you're in digital concern, it's a digital bank. Okay, what is a digital bank? What would they do different? Or
Hmm.
they'll use social media to attract their clients, and that's the only way they do their business. So now you start building these what if scenarios across that business that you try to relate with. Or the same thing you can do is you can take random objects, like what I said. You find something new. Let's say you find a new technology, a VR device, or an augmented reality glass. Now you think, okay, this augmented reality glass and my phone, how can I associate these things together?
Hmm.
And then you come up with something new. So this is one way most of innovators really force associational thinking in their day-to-day life. So once you start developing this muscle, initially you need to force yourself, but after some time what you realize is you automatically start linking, this can be used in my business, this can be used in my life, this is something I can use it. And if you look at most of the new innovations that you see out there are like things that are completely normal. It was quite obvious, but nobody saw that obviousness because somebody else found that associational thinking. And with 3D printing today, I see quite a lot of new amazing things that are done. Like when you
Hmm.
see some simple things that's done, it's so amazing. You feel like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Recently, I saw someone who had made a what do you call a bottle opener. Okay,
Hmm.
now you
Hmm.
take a bottle opener, standard bottle openers we have when you open the bottle cap, right? The cap falls off, right? So he had made a cap, same shape, which is circular, but with a magnet inside. So now when you
Hmm.
open, the cap stays there. I mean, that is not something completely unknown. We know magnets would help the cap to stay. But we didn't ever think of that. It's a simple invention, but solving a common problem all of us have. If
Yeah.
we had that observation skill, and when you walk through a retail shop, Game Kade or wherever they have these soft drinks, you would see near the bottle openers in those refrigerator, caps are all over. If you go to
Yeah, I do
school,
that.
near the tuck
Yeah.
shop, I don't know whether they have it now, but during our time, around the tuck shop, you have bottle caps which are pressed onto the floor, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Or even if you go to a ground canteen, you will see bottle caps around,
Mm.
which becomes part of the environment after some time.
Yeah.
But if somebody or one of us thought at that moment, hey, why are we polluting? Is there a better way? How can I make sure that the bottle cap doesn't fall off? Then you would kind of start thinking. Then you will start looking at, okay, how can I, if you see a magnet, how can this magnet and bottle cap be brought together? And you start, experiment. You start observing new things. And it's quite amazing to see his journey. This guy who had created it,
Yeah.
he shows different versions. In fact, he shows even when he started before the magnet, where he put the bottle cap opener. It was first in the middle, then in the corner. So he was testing. Then the depth he had for it, so it could hold. Is amazing. Prototyping, what we are talking of, experimentation was amazingly done. So same guy had like several crazy things like that. Very simple things. Flower pots that can be hung inside a house with water not dripping out. So he would have
Oh,
holders. It's a common problem, right? You have flower pots at home or your veranda. You pour water, it overflows.
yes.
So he found something and he kept it. He made flower pots that can be kept on your teapot in your home living room, and water doesn't overflow. And
Mm.
then I saw another design where he brought his bottle cap into that design as well. And he made coasters. Sorry, what he did was his first invention was a coaster. Coasters are what we keep the mugs on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So a coaster with the bottle cap opener. That was his first invention. That's why it was circular. And then he realized, people were complaining of where the bottle cap opener was fixed. So he changed the direction. Then he found out the problem of bottle caps falling. Even if in a living room and you open, it falls off. Then he
Mm.
brought the magnet. And then he brought, several things. So now he's starting to associate around him. He takes input from the real users, and it's a simple solution. Once you know it, you're like, it won't cost you to make a big a bottle cap opener, which is a coaster. It's a simple thing, but that initial thought didn't come if you didn't have that associational thinking. So
True.
that's a very good example of how associational thinking can be brought in, and it happens every day. As I mean, so many. If you look at a motor vehicle, right? Let's take a simple questioning and associational thinking. If we ask, if you remember, probably olden days, the gear in some vehicles were under the steering wheel, right?
Mm.
On
Mm.
the side.
Like this.
Like today, also they have it on the side, some of them. Then you have it in the middle. But a question we may ask is like, do we need the gear stick in the middle? Can it be somewhere else? Can it be something else? Can it be button? I mean, you have paddle controls on steering. So if you look at your day-to-day objects, day-to-day what you do, day-to-day what you are experience are exposed into, and you start thinking, okay, can I do something different? What if it doesn't have this? What if I link it with this? What if I have a steering wheel that is not circular? Okay. If you remember Night Ride, right, it had like, those aeroplane kind of steering wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously it might have, risks and so on and so forth. But if you start, maybe when the Night Rider car was built in for that movie, I don't know, the real vehicle had that type of steering wheel. I think it was built for the car, the movie, the TV series. Somebody would have associated with the airplane and said, like, what if the car is like a jet? And
Mm.
probably they brought that steering wheel. So that's probably the association thinking they brought in, right?
True.
Maybe somebody would ask, like, do we need drivers? Can't it be drivers? And that's how associational thinking is brought in, because you thought like, okay, in movies you see driverless cars. Why can't a car be that way? So if you start associating, and movies are very good inspiration. I think if you look at the movie series Star Wars, they say that movie series has kind of influenced a lot of people to come up with new inventions, because when it was shown back in, I think, the early 80s, right? It had a lot of inventions, innovations that was not practically available for humankind, but people
Mm-hmm.
started creating. Recently, I saw someone who had made a saber sword, a laser saber sword like that,
Mm-hmm.
and if you look at his innovation process, it's amazing how he really developed it, how he brought a laser light that could be seen, how it could switch off. So sometimes movies can be inspiration for us. So this is pretty much what I want to talk about associational thinking, because it's a very important aspect for us to develop. Any thoughts, Asi? Anything you want to share? I think I did most of the talking.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, technically speaking, companies like PickMe, the companies like Uber, uh, they are all successful because of this association thinking, right? So there's food, there's delivery, you combine it, and voila, there you have a better business, a bigger business.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, that's a good example. If you look at those apps, somebody would have asked, what if we sell food on this? Why can't it be a food app, right? Why can't Amazon? I mean, look at Amazon, best example as an e-commerce giant, started as a bookstore, but
Yeah,
they started asking, why do we have to store books? Why can't we sell it online? That was the first question probably they asked, right?
yeah.
And then they thought, why can't we have books like probably like music? Somebody would have asked that question, and maybe they brought audibles after that. Maybe they asked, can't we print books, like can't we take printouts? I remember Amazon, I don't know if the service is still available, Asi, but you remember for us, if we want to use during whether it's higher education or school time, when we want a copy, we'll go and take the book to photocopy,
Yeah.
and we take a photocopy of it, right? Now, technically, that's copyright violation. If you read every book, they say this book may not be reproduced as part or in whole without written consent of the publisher and the author, right? But we are all photocopy. But Amazon, at one point, they allowed students in schools to get a printout of a particular section delivered to them, right?
Mm,
They had like corner stores partnered who could do that. Now the good thing is it's not just photocopy; it's an original of those chapters. Plus, the author or the publishing company gets part of that royalty, so it's not copyright violation. Right? Now imagine that. Who would think, like, we have all these stationery shops around the world. You partner with them and say we legally allow you to photocopy, right? And we'll give you the technology for that. We'll give you
mm.
clear prints so it doesn't look like with those black and white lines, and you don't have quality issues. You don't
Yeah.
have to waste time flipping pages. We'll give you an application. You just type the name, the pages, done. You get a printout. That's associational thinking. So today we can create associational thinking in any way, in bringing anything new. And the power is, if you go back to questioning, if you go back to observing, if you go back to networking, experimenting, and then bring your associational thinking, you are already an innovator. So, as I said, in our workshop, we take our audience, or what do you say, our learn partners, through this journey where you
Mm.
actually we force you to learn this these skills and practically use it and come up with an idea before you leave. And
Correct.
today with AI, life is much more easier, right? You can play with AI. You don't need teams anymore. You can work alone on with an AI agent or LLM and start
Mm.
asking these questions. What if my laptop is like a car? Oh, that reminds me. Remember, I think it was Acer, right? They used to bring Lamborghini Acers and Ferrari Acers and all. So maybe
Yes, yes.
somebody asked that question. What if my laptop? And they bring the same material, carbon fiber, and the
Yeah.
branding. So somebody asked that question. What if my laptop is like a car? Right? So you could ask these questions. You can be an innovator yourself, and you can really change the game. So with that, Asi, I think we've got our time right. I hope we've inspired you to start thinking as an innovator. If you have missed out, go back to our earlier sessions. And Asi, you want to do the needful for requesting if they want to connect with us and ask for the
Yeah,
audio.
yeah, yeah. Sure, sure. Yes, yes, yes. And I mean, if your organization required our expertise in terms of how your team can be more innovative. We do have the structure, and just because having the structure it's not going to work, you need the experts to help you out executing this structure. And I mean, from the past sessions which we have completed, some of them they have requested the module, the structure, and we have given, and we actually did couple of sessions as well. And maybe let's see whether we can bring one of them for our future sessions as a testimony, as well as
Definitely.
a talker who can actually speak about the innovation, how they have improved their organization with our expertise. So don't be afraid. We are here to help you. And if you're going through challenges in your organization, if innovation is lacking, well, hash 33 Fox, we are here to give you that guideline.
Definitely. And if you really require a framework, just drop us a message and we'll be happy to share a framework of our innovation framework. And with that, I think we are ending today's session of A2Y and the innovation mindset or innovators DNA sessions. We'll
Yeah,
come up with a different topic series for the next A2Y. So don't forget to follow us on our Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or individually as well. So with that, ending, I'm Yasas.
and I'm Asi signing off.
See you next week.